Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday, July 20th, and this will be our chart lesson for the day. You can see here, I want to show you the daily chart. You can see we did have this breakout yesterday. We continued on up today. This ended as kind of a neutral range type day. When you see the 2000 tick chart, it'll look like a range day. You would expect this breakout to fail. The problem is you don't know where it's going to turn down and fail. And I mean, even if it's going to go much higher, you would expect it to fail temporarily at some point and come back and test the breakout area and that hold before prices go too much higher. Now, we do have this measured move, so this leg could reach a measured move before we turn back down. This doesn't look too promising to me that we're actually going higher from here. We're already in over bought territory. Uh, Not deeply, but once you get past this purple lavender color here, that's pretty much, and you can see we closed, but even though we pushed above that today, we closed below it. So we're getting into oversold or overbought territory here. So it doesn't mean we can't go much higher. It's just giving you some clues here. And my expectation is we might make this measured move based on this leg over here. And um, if we do continue higher, that's my target. And then I would expect prices to at least pull back and test this. Honestly, this chart says we're going to probably come back and retest these lows. So I do not believe that the selling is completely over, although these are clues that we're getting close to a bottom here. So again, you know how this works on a shorter term time period. We could be just going to go sideways for a while, or we could even go into uh, we may find a flatter channel working lower here. My guess is we'll test these lows and we'll probably finally find a temporary, or at least a temporary low bottom, and then we'll rally some for a while. That's just the way the markets work. And we've been in this downtrend really for quite a while. And I would look, let's just look, can't remember if I've measured these yet. Here's your first leg down and your second leg here. So you can see we bounced right there where that second leg was expected, but we've gone much lower. And that's not unusual at all. So I would think at some point here we're gonna make a new low and retest these lows and probably rally out of here and finally find a bottom. Um, when that's going to happen, it's hard to say, but we're getting some clues here with this break of the trend line, the break out of I mean, that had been strong resistance for a little while. We broke out of there. We broke out of this down sloping trend line goes all the way back to um, early April. So, I mean, that's a long time. And we're finally getting a close outside of it. So that's telling you something. Those are clues that this thing is, we're getting close to a bottom. I don't think we're there yet because generally you'll come back and retest these lows on a retest. And that could go much lower. I mean, a lot of times those are capitulation type moves, and the people that don't understand how to read this chart just see it going lower again, and they say, okay, I'm giving up. Every time I try to buy, I tried to buy here and get sold off. I tried to buy here, it sold off. I tried to buy here, it sold off. I tried to buy here, it sold off. Now I'm going to try to buy here, and then suddenly it starts selling off again, and you feel like you're getting banged in the head a few times, and then everybody gives up and throws in the towel, and that's when you finally get a bottom. That's generally how this type of stuff works. So, not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying that the chart's hitting around at a possible that we're coming close to putting in a low now, for at least temporary low, because we got this close outside of the trend line. We got a close outside of the range 2 days in a row. So that's a strong clue that, hey, we may find a bottom here. But anyway, let's flip over to the intraday chart and go from there. Okay, here's a high level look at the 2000 tick intraday chart, and you can see it's just a range day. We did break outside of the overnight highs here, but we still found this resistance and never could really go much higher. And you can see there's a lot of mixed trading in here. We're up, we're down, we're up, we're down, we're up, we're down. And these kind of days are hard because unless you get consistent turns off the highs or consistent bounces off the lows, really all you can do is trade the trends with inside it. And there's just not a lot of setups on those today. So there's not going to be a lot of I mean, there's still plenty of trades here before noon to do well. There's even a couple in the afternoon. But most of the time, you're going to find most of your better trades before 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. That's Central Standard Time I'm talking about. That's my time that I'm trading. It's Chicago time, which these markets all are off Chicago time anyway. So uh, all the CME stuff is anyway. So I'm not every market, because you do have your New York markets as well. But uh, most of the indexes or futures are going to be off Chicago time, Central Standard Time. But anyway, let's zoom in here, go through the trades, and it won't take long because there's not a lot of them today. So you really had to be patient and picky today. And you have to do that on range days. It's just the way it goes. So always keep that in mind and don't force trades. And if you don't like what you're seeing, if there's not much happening, just take the day off. It's easy. Uh, when you're new, though, I understand what happens is you feel like you have to trade and you want to find a trade, and you're chasing the trade on every swing, and you got to get past that to be successful at this. And so work towards that. Keep that in mind. But let's go in here and talk about the trade. But 7 o'clock came just as we're kind of bouncing off these lows here. We did have a break and a new low already, but you just really don't get anything that bounces here. And I don't know if you want to take that short or not. I mean, you could argue for that to maybe be green. That will probably pull back and test that before we go higher, but it turns out to be a really nice move. If you took that one, it's a little aggressive. It's just a failed breakout, and it does make a new high. It's real easy for that to tick lower and then make another push up and then turn down. So you want some proof. People are always asking, well, how do you use higher lows and lower highs? Well, notice what's happening here. Prices made a higher high than the last high. And they could turn down and make a higher low and another higher high, and we were in an uptrend. But with this new high, you need to see what the next one's going to be. Is it going to be a higher high or a lower high? And if it comes down here and it's a lower high and you get a signal bar, then you got more proof that we're going lower. Right now, we've got a strong momentum move up and no real indication that, hey, the next turn is going to go lower. So you really need a lower high there. So sometimes I'm not saying you can't trade these, but they're going to fail on you sometimes. So you need to be, so by taking them, you're taking aggressive, not sure things. Sometimes those are worth taking. And in this case, there's a little room back to the EMA, and there's probably a good chance we'll at least pull back there before we go higher, if we do go higher. So maybe you take that trade. But I'm just warning you, if you take these, don't send me an email asking me why it failed, because they're going to fail. It's just the way it is. So that's why we like to wait. If it makes a new higher high, and what I mean there is this breakout, this high is higher than these last highs. See where these last ones were turning down? It didn't turn down there. It went much higher. So there's more. We already have information. There's more momentum, and I only see one leg up. So we could easily get another leg up there. So that's what you're guarding against by waiting on a lower high. And you don't always get a lower high. That's the other thing. So sometimes by trying to be more conservative, you miss out on a trade. And sometimes by being more aggressive, you get rewarded. And if you took this trade, you got rewarded because you got an easy runner all the way to the bottom. Easy runner. You take no heat on this trade really whatsoever. The bottom just falls out and it goes straight out. And if you take that and you just don't even count your scalp, you just take one runner and you just take it to here, well, a single contract makes you $400 in just a couple of minutes. So that's the idea there. So if you take on more risk, sometimes you're going to get more reward, but you're going to have more losers. So it's a trade-off. What do you want to do? Do you want to have sure things and have easy trades? You probably won't get as many runners, but you'll get lots of easy scalps, and you probably won't have many losers, and your profit margin will build. Well, you got to take sure things for that. And if you take enough sure things, you'll get some runners too. You just won't get as many. It's these breakouts, this that make these new. This was an important high at the moment. Didn't turn out to be for the day, but sometimes they'll be for the day, just like this breakout. You know, maybe you do, if you had a setup bar down here, maybe you do the same thing. You take a little risk. And guess what? If you do catch one down here, well, that turns out to be the low of the entire day. And from there on, it was all uphill. And that's why we like to take those kind of trades occasionally if you get a good setup. So keep that in mind. We came down, made another low, so we got a break and 2 legs down to a new low, and then we bounced a few times. There's a triple test here, but that signal bar is not good enough, and you can kind of see that trend line starting to hold again. Sometimes you'll get a break during the overnight hours, which is anything before 8:30 a.m. and but your trend line will come back in play and continue to be in play. It's like they kind of ignore that break because maybe it was during the after hours and it's more easy to manipulate it and things like that. I don't really, I mean, I'm just guessing at that. That's my opinion that maybe that's why it happens. But I don't know that for a fact. All I know is that sometimes it happens because I've been doing this 25 years, and when you sit here and watch something every day for 25 years, you start to notice things. So that will happen sometimes. But we dropped down, made that new low, and then made a triple test. That signal bar is just not good enough to me. There's too much stem at the top. Let me see if I can zoom in here a little more. We come up, we try to go lower once. There's really a failure here, but that doesn't set up as a failure. And if you don't understand that, don't worry about failures if you're new to this, because they're very advanced. They're for skilled traders, and if you try to trade them, all you're going to do is slow your learning curve, have more losses, and take you much longer to learn this. Concentrate on the basics. There's a reason I don't talk about failures in the manual, and that's why, because all they do is slow people down. You get people trying to trade them. I get all the craziest emails like, why didn't this failure work? But it's not even a real failure. It doesn't even set up properly. So if you don't understand enough about a failure to even know what the pattern looks like, you sure don't need to be trying to trade it. So it's not that I'm trying to steer people away from what works. I'm just trying to help you what's going to help you get to profitability the quickest. And if you learn the basics first and you wait to learn failures organically, meaning you learn them kind of as you go based on your experience, then they will start to stick out like a sore thumb at some point, and that's when you can trade them. But if they're not sticking out like a sore thumb, then or if you're taking them and they're failing, then you're just slowing yourself down. So I didn't mean to get off on that tangent, but please don't send me emails about failures. If you have a failure that doesn't work, it wasn't a failure. That's all I can tell you about it. You just misread it, or you don't know what you're doing, and most of the time it's just traders don't know what they're doing. And I don't mean that to be ugly or to put you off. You're just wasting your time and my time by asking about them, because if you took what you thought was a failure and it didn't work, then it was not a failure. That's all I can tell you. Your read is not right, or you just got trapped, and it happens. Even on good failures that I take, sometimes I get trapped. Not very often, but it happens. But anyway, we bounce here, and even though there's a failure here, there's still 2 legs back. Hopefully you can see that. You get a leg down, and then you get a 2-legged correction in the middle, and then another leg down. So technically, that is still a second entry right there. It's kind of convoluted. It's a little sideways, but if prices break above this, we're probably going to go higher, because I guarantee you they've trapped people. And they probably already trapped the longs out that went long over here and scared them away, and then they all will come running back right here when it goes higher. So this is a good place to catch that trap. I would probably wait for this bar to close, just simply because, but it's an engulfing bar, so. And it's a little bit sideways. So wait for this to close, and you want to see a break above that high. And when you get it, take that. Then you get another 2 legs back. You do get a close outside the trend line this time. And there was a clue that it was coming, because notice we didn't get back to the upper side. And so then you get the overshoot. But it's clearly a couple of legs down to a new low. And it's the first break of the trend line. So we're still doing a little sideways with the kind of an upward bias here, but prices are going to at least go back to that EMA most likely. And we'll probably try to retest that high. So the key is, do you have enough room back to that EMA? If you do, you probably want to take that trade. It's aggressive. It's a little aggressive. It's not a sure thing, perfect setup. So it's probably only for people that understand and a little more about price action. And you could argue too, there's a triple test. Notice we made a low, we tested it once, and we tested it twice. So you could argue there's a triple test too. That's the other reason I like that trade. And you can see it right across there. We tested that line multiple times, and this time you get that little break lower that often traps people too. The problem is what really sets this up, and I'll explain this, and you'll probably say, yeah, I know that. That's happened to me. And we're already 15 minutes in, so I'm going to get rolling here. But what happens is a lot of traders want to see proof that we're going lower before they enter. By the time you do that, it's too late. And that's where common sense comes in. Common sense says, okay, just wait, get a little proof we're going lower, and hey, if we break below here, I'm jumping in. And when it does that, the smart traders know it's already time for a bounce, especially at support that we've tested multiple times. And so everybody's looking the smart traders are all looking to buy. The big traders are all looking to buy, and they start buying, and all the sellers have to exit, and it just keeps going. But that's what happens here. And that's where the common sense, that's why a lot of smart people think they're going to be quicker at learning trading, because they're going to use their common sense, and they've used their common sense all their life, and it's been reinforced, and it's worked for them. And that's great, because it does work for you in most things in life. But if you use your common sense in trading, you will lose, because prices do not move based on common sense. If it did, everybody could be a trader. But they move exact opposite of common sense. You've heard people say, I decided to be a contrarian and became a great trader. Well, that's just because they quit using their common sense and started thinking backwards, and it kind of worked for them. Most people can't do that. It's not really that easy, but some people have found it's helped them to learn to trade quicker by thinking like that. But most people are too smart, and they think they're especially highly educated people that have relied on their common sense and their education over time, and it's paid off for them, and it's been reinforced over and over. And they come in here trading, they think, I'm going to do, just because it took everybody else 3 years, well, I'm smarter than that. It's not going to take me that long. And they give up. They're broke and gone within months in most cases, or they're still hanging around years later wondering why they can't find success, and they're still relying on their smarts and their common sense. Just throw that out. I've set all the rules up for you on how to understand price movements, and it's up to you to learn them and again get the experience watching it happen until you figure it out. I can't do that part for you. I can give you the rules and tell you what to expect, like on breakouts, they're going to fail. Or most people where amateurs are trying to get short down here, the smart traders all know to get long because they know price action, and I've set those rules up for you. All you got to do is follow the rules and trust them. And that's why we sim trade, so you can prove it to yourself and learn to trust it. But anyway, you bounce, you go higher, you make a new high, and now we're trending lower. Unfortunately, there's just not a good setup here to get short. There's a lower high here, but you're still inside that trend line, and you see it tried to bounce. It didn't, but it tried, and it could, and so it's just not a good setup. There's a failure here. But again, we're just kind of working sideways. Look how flat the EMA is. If you took this trade, it works, but it just doesn't set up properly. It does set up below the EMA, which you want to see that, but the bar is too bearish. Usually this would end more bullish and then start trading down and break lower. So because it's such a bearish bar that failed already, it's not going to fool as many people. And you can see it didn't. It kind of bounced sideways a while before it went lower. It's just not going to fool many people, in other words. So we keep working kind of sideways, and finally you get a lower high here. It's still not a great setup, but it breaks higher right there. It's probably going to trap people. the key is you have to enter this on the engulfing bar, and engulfing bars are usually, if you do that and you're not really experienced at this, the bar you'll get trapped. You really need to let this close, and if you wait for this to close, then you got an inside bar and the brakes below it, and you can't use that inside bar because they're too unreliable. So if you didn't enter this on the engulfing bar, don't take it, and even then it's questionable. So we drop on down, we bounce, and this is what's sad is we got this huge move up here, and there's not one decent entry here. It just finally bounces, goes a little sideways. Maybe you look at this as a triple test right here, and if prices would have broke higher than that, maybe you drop a limit order, but they don't even do that. You get an inside bar, and you don't want to go long above that inside bar with that little bit of room to the high because it could easily turn back down. Unfortunately, there's no setup, and this thing just takes off. There's a high or low here, but I don't think you want to take that. There's no reversal pattern at all. So there's just no chance to get in it. It just takes off. And then you get a correction here, comes back, confirms the trend line. But look, you get a doji, another inside bar doji, and then it just takes off. So again, no setup. You get a high or low way up here. You get a reversal way up here that doesn't really work. I mean, that's not where you're looking for a reversal like that anyway, or a failure. I guess I should say a failure because that's not a reversal type pattern. And then we don't notice how we don't get back up there. We had a little bit of overshoot here, and then we don't get back up there, and then we get the break. So you're getting clues that, hey, maybe it's going to get a break here soon. And when it gets that break, it just starts working sideways again. I do think you could enter this one. Notice that you're working sideways, but notice every time it comes back to that trend line, it holds, and you make a lower high and a lower lower. So we're technically trending lower right there, even though there's some sideways stuff. And you could look at this as a failure. This is a double top, so first entry, second entry, right at the trend line. I kind of like that trade. I mean, that's probably the best trade. It's not the perfect, hey, I'm going to take that every time trade, but it's probably the best trade we've had in a while. Since early in the morning. So that's I mean, you could even argue this be green, but I think there's enough clues there to take that short. The other thing is it's a hidden second entry. Notice we work up, we work down, and then we work back and then turn down. So there's a hidden second entry in there as well. So you may take that trade. You could argue for it to be green if you know, especially if you're not that skilled. Then we bounce. Notice we don't get back down there here. Notice that. We don't get back to the trend channel line. That means maybe there's a break coming. You do get a second entry short there that fails. Again, this is not a great, you'd rather see this be a real bearish bar rather than it's got more of a bullish bar than a bearish bar. But still, I guarantee that's going to trap a lot of shorts, and you'll at least get an easy scalp out of it. And you actually get a little more than that. Actually, you probably don't because it does come back before it goes higher. So, but I do like that for a trap. It's a failed second entry short. It's not necessarily a reversal because you're not necessarily looking for a reversal here, but that's going to trap shorts. People that think we're headed, because we're in this downtrend. And we know not to go short because the signal bar doesn't qualify. So we're just sitting tight. And when suddenly you see a chance to take the trap, you take it. We try to make a new low and kind of bounce there. There's actually a second entry long on this break. It's actually above this bar, but this is a signal bar. And again, it doesn't qualify. You make a high or low up here. You can't really enter there. And again, you just don't get a chance to enter until finally we get a close outside the new high, and then we actually push up a couple more times. But notice you get up here on this breakout. Now we've had resistance there, and we break out. It's probably going to fail, even if only temporary. But notice you try to go higher once, twice, three times, and then look how bearish that is. And there's still room back to the retest area of the breakout plus the EMA. or yeah, the EMA there. I like going short there, and sometimes you might catch the very high there and get a good move. In this case, you don't really get a huge move out of it, but it comes back and you get a first entry long, and then you get a second entry long, and it fails, and it's almost like a repeat almost. It's not really a triple test, but it still looks very similar with that same signal bar, and even the move down looks very similar. So really what you do is you just get two measured legs down there. There's leg one, and there's leg two. And then you get two legs of correction, and it turns down on another second entry with a nice signal bar right off that trend line again, and that's the move of the day. If you can just catch that one trade, so if you just sit here and be patient, I mean, most anybody should be able to find that trade right there because it's an easy second entry. It's right off a trend line. Notice that once we broke below the resistance up here, or it was support at that point, it tested the resistances once, twice, three times. That's a triple test, a second entry short, all right off the key entry point. And notice how that went much higher before it turned down and closed almost on the slow. They got them trapped right there. And that'll set the momentum. And you don't know that it's going to do this, but sometimes it does. And this was one of those times. And that one trade would make up for everything here because you most likely you should get a runner on that depending on how you play it. And if you ride that down just till it breaks outside the trend channel, then that's $1,000 move on one contract. One contract. And that's where runners really change your math. Think about that. If you could catch, just say you got half of that, that's $500. Well, that makes up for a bunch of losers. That maybe erases a couple of three losers. And if you're hitting it in the 90s, then that probably wipes out all your losers and really changes your math. It's just, you got to try to get some runners. It's key to long-term success. Although you can, if you're good enough, you can just scalp and make money. But we have plenty of people that do that. There's times when it gets real choppy, I just scalp. But I want to try to get those runners for that reason. But anyway, we get a break, we try to go lower, and it takes off higher again. And you don't expect that. I mean, it wouldn't be uncommon for this to come back to the EMA and give you a second entry short. But it doesn't. It shoots right on through, and then it gives you a reversal type pattern. You're probably going to trap some people there, but I don't think I trade that as a reversal, not after that move down, because we're probably going to get another move down. We're going to at least retest these lows. And you can see we almost get what looks like a measured move here. I mean, so that's giving you a target way down here. So, but anyway, maybe you take that trade. It's not a second entry short, so the second entry was right here. But you do get a close outside move to a new high. You get a lower high here, but everything is still above that EMA. It's like the buyers or the sellers just can't get control until finally they push it through. And then if you're just patient, you get a first entry. You go higher here, and it breaks higher and turns down. You could trade that on the engulfing bar. I'd probably wait and go short here, and then you don't have a whole lot of room here. I marked this one green because it's a little congested and sideways too, and that's always a gamble. But there's pretty good momentum to the downside. So if you take that one, knowing that it's aggressive and a little bit, pressing a little bit, then I'm okay with that. If you're okay with taking a loss there and you understand what's going on and the fact that you are pressing. But it bounces right off the low. Notice there's the failed second entry short there, but that's not a reversal pattern. And that's not anything you want to trade because it's too much sideways and it could fail on you. It ends up going higher, and then you get a first entry, and you come back and you get a second entry, and that's a really bullish bar. The problem is, again, it's a little congested. But it's right here at the key entry point. If we break above that, we're probably going higher. And you can see it broke above, and then it trades back, but it ends up closing up. So and that's why we put our safety stop down here where we put it, because if it goes lower in there, then we're going lower. But you can see it couldn't quite get the stop there. So that's why we hide their safety stops where we hide them. But we move up, another leg up. Technically that's a second entry short, but signal bar is not very good. And that was an overshoot. You get another second entry here. Notice the new low, first entry, second entry. But again, signal bar is not very good. We're still above the EMA, so you can't really trade that as a reversal or anything like that yet either. But you make another new high, then you try to go higher once, push down, try to go higher twice, and now you got a failure. And a nice signal bar right at the key entry point. That's the one you want to take. And you actually get another two-leg correction here, but that's too congested. Works out okay, but you don't know that in advance, so don't take that trade. We bounce here. Now we've had a break and a new low. But again, you just don't get a setup to go long there, and then you get the close outside, and we're just chopping sideways, and then you get a leg down. No trend line, no trend channel play out, no reason for it to bounce there. It just turns and goes higher again. And it's probably going to be, I would measure this leg probably like this first. And then if that didn't get it and we kept going higher, I'd measure it from down here. And maybe it hit them both, but no, that takes you right. That turns out to be the high. It's the perfect two measured legs up. But you do get this is really not a convincing close outside till here, and then you move to a new high and it turns down. So when it made this triple test and a nice signal bar here, knowing that we still probably need a retest of the high, I like going long there. It comes back again here, but you made this new low down here and closed outside it actually, and then you closed pretty much right into the midline. That's kind of dangerous, especially a 2-bar matching high. It would have worked, but I'd skip that trade. And that took you into 230. So this is over 30 minutes. Long lesson for no more trades than there were, but there were a lot of good learning opportunities here today, and hopefully you learned something from some of the stuff I went over. But I'm not going to hang around and beat around the bush. We're going to wrap it up. We'll be back again tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday, so we'll wrap up our week tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.